Welcome to Glove Talk, your weekly news in boxing. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button. And with that said, let's get into it. Okay, I'm super pumped for this fight. I'm sure you guys are as well. Let me know down in the comments who you have winning and how you have them winning. I think everyone has an opinion about this fight, and I love hearing from you guys and just getting the insight that you guys have for fights. So with that said, let's get into the breakdown now. Normally when I break down a fight, I like to talk about, fighter A, their pros, their cons, how I see them winning, and then talk about fighter B, then give my overall prediction. I'm going to kind of scrap that this time. I'm going to do things where I talk about both fighters at the same time and do a generalized category to see if I can streamline the process as well as get to my prediction sooner rather than later, and save you guys time so that way you can get on doing whatever you want to do with your day. So let's start with the physical side of things: size, ability, speed. And with that, I was actually surprised that I thought Lopez would have more of a height advantage over Loma, but then I double checked it. He doesn't. He only has a 1-inch height advantage. He does have a 2.5-inch reach advantage though, and that will come in, I'm sure, to play in this fight. But I just feel like in general, Lopez seems like the bigger guy. He seems like the bigger fighter. He looks like he walks around a little bit heavier than Loma. He seems like he's just a bigger build than Loma. I'm expecting him to come into this fight rehydrated and be 8 pounds heavier than Loma in this fight. That's just from the eye test and what I see. I could be wrong. Let me know what you guys think. But to me, he seems like a bigger guy overall. Now, when it comes to the weigh-ins, we'll get a really good scale comparison, obviously, when they're side by side. Now, moving on from that, let's talk about power, because we have to talk about power if we're talking about Lopez. Lopez wins this category, and I think it's safe to say he is the bigger puncher. He's certainly the true one-punch KO power. Loma has power, but it's not that one-punch KO power. It's just not the way he is. I would say that Lopez arguably is the heaviest handed fighter in the lightweight division. Some people might say Tank, but I would disagree with you, and I think there's a case to be made that Lopez is he's just a really heavy-handed guy for lightweight. He certainly, once he gets older too, it could be scary. It could be scary, and he could definitely transfer up to higher weight classes, and I bet you that power would transfer. Now, Loma's power, what Loma does with his power is that he makes you pay for your mistakes. It's adequate power, and it's a type of power that he doesn't necessarily try to knock you out with one shot, but he tries to hurt you by being precise with his power, aka liver shot. If you give it to him, he's gonna take it, and you're probably gonna get KO'd from a body shot. So he's more of that. That's how he uses his power and the way he uses his power, and it's different, but I think it's very effective. Now let's talk about speed, hand speed, footwork. In this case, I think for hand speed, I think they're kind of similar. I don't see one guy with crazy hand speed and someone that's a lot slower. It just doesn't, no one sticks out. I think they're both effective with their hand speed. I think Lopez's delivery system for that right hand is fantastic. I think he's very quick to the point. It's very straight with that and accurate with that right hand. I think, Loma on the other side is very quick with his counter punching and knows how to utilize his hand speed. It's just, I don't see anyone really with an overwhelming advantage here like I do power. So for me, it's a little bit more of a wash. In terms of footwork now, I think that's easy to say that goes to Loma. I think Loma's, dancing ability and footwork is it just shines. It shines in the ring, and he's just a very unique fighter with his footwork. Lopez is no slouch, but I think he's a little bit more of a come forward, go backwards kind of guy. He's solid, but I mean, Loma's just special in that way. Now let's talk about the mental side of this. And this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Let's talk about mental fortitude, ring IQ, adaptability. So when it comes to ring IQ, I think you have to give that to Loma as well. Now, Loma has almost a decade more of experience and has fought at the top level and elite level fighters multiple times. He doesn't allow pressure to affect his ring IQ and his thought process in the ring. I think he knows how to diagnose his opponent quicker than most and knows how to implement that in a way that's effective. I think that, you know, as Lopez goes, and especially from this fight, he's only going to get stronger in this way, though. I think Loma's kind of a finished product in terms of his ring IQ, whereas Lopez, he could continue to grow, and I'm very curious to see how that goes, you know, down the line. When it comes to adjustability, I would also give that to Loma. We've seen him in every fight, I believe, make adjustments, and even in the Salido fight, he made adjustments. Now, they were too late and they didn't affect the fight enough for him to win, but he still made them. And when he got knocked down by Linares, we saw him make adjustments, and he came out in a different kind of gear than he did in the round that he got, you know, a little bit complacent and got that flash knockdown from Linares. Even against Pedraza, when he wasn't 100% healthy, he still found ways to win that fight. And same thing with Luke Campbell, where, you know, Luke was holding his own and Loma still found a way to make sure he hit the canvas. When it comes to Lopez, this is a little bit harder to judge because he's generally had his way in most fights. When he didn't in the Nakatani fight, there's a couple elements there I want to talk about. One of them I'll get to, but he didn't make the adjustments I wanted him to make. Now, Nakatani's a very unique fighter, though, so I don't know if that's, you know, fair to just totally criticize him and say that he can't make adjustments. It's just he didn't in that fight. And if you remember correctly, going into the Comey fight, that's why some people had questions about him, really, was because they said, I don't know, he had some issues, but still, we saw how that worked out, right? So that's where it comes to adjustability. Now, mental fortitude, this one's a little bit harder to kind of judge because Loma does exercises for this. He does things to make himself be comfortable when he's uncomfortable, whether it's holding his breath for 4 minutes or just in general, a lot of, you know, sports psychology in his camp. And that's what makes him unique. We don't know the mental fortitude of Lopez, and I don't want to act as though I know what he's capable of. I think he's a tough kid, and I'm sure he's going to stick in this fight no matter what. But how quickly is he going to get frustrated? And what happens when he gets frustrated? How he overcomes challenges is a different question, and I don't have an answer to that. So I don't want to pass judgment on Lopez and say this is not something that he can win. So with that, I'm now going to move to talking about corners. And this is where I want to bring up that Nakatani fight again, and I will in a minute. When it comes to Lomachenko, I think there's no question he's a elite level trainer, just elite level, knows how to work with his son and knows how to get the best out of his son. As a cornerman and coach, he knows how to make adjustments with his son and how to relay that information in an effective manner so that his son can make those needed adjustments and trust his father to give him the right information. When it comes to the Lopez corner, this is where things get interesting. And I'm going to be watching this corner like a hawk and seeing what they say, because Lopez Sr. has good boxing knowledge. Clearly he does, because he has gotten his son to this point. You cannot deny that. But how does he adapt and change his son's game plan is going to be a different question. Does he stay cool? Does he get frustrated? Does he turn into the football coach, drill sergeant, and try to, you know, pep talk him to kind of get his spirit up? Or does he go more the analytical side and tries to, you know, say too much information? I don't know. And that's why I bring up the Nakatani fight again, because in that, what happened there in terms of translation, I don't know if there was enough effectiveness in the corner to help his son. Is it just that they didn't have a lot of game plans because they thought they'd steamroll him, or was it just something that their game plan didn't work? I don't know. So for me, that's a huge question mark. And I think one thing we have to look at is father-son relationship in this fight. Loma and Lomachenko, it seems like, have a really good understanding and they know how to work together because they've been doing it for so long. It seems like, you know, Lomachenko doesn't say anything in interviews or just in general that that his son wouldn't want him to say. Lopez Sr.'s different. and it seems like there's some a little bit rockier relationship between Junior and Senior. It seems like Junior said things like, you know, my dad says things and he's writing checks that I have to cash in the ring. We've heard things like Junior having panic attacks on airplanes and getting stressed out. He's even said that his dad doesn't know how to turn off being a coach, and that affects him. And so I'm very curious how this all plays out. I really am. It's going to be a sink or swim moment, I think, for both guys at certain points, and how their coaches and their corners and their fathers react is going to be a big factor in this fight. So now let's move on from that to what I like to call the X factor. These are just general things I think either people aren't talking about or things I've thought about this fight that I want to kind of share with you guys. So X factor number one would be sparring and training. I think it's safe to say that Loma can bring in, heck, he can bring in welterweights that are hard hitting to simulate Lopez, to get a sense of what it's like to deal with that kind of size and power. But I don't know how you do that when it comes to the Lopez camp in terms of Loma. You can get guys that are quick, you can get guys that move well. You're never gonna be able to duplicate Lomachenko. And so for that, I'm curious how that plays into the game planning for this fight, because like I said, I think Loma can game plan pretty well and simulate to a degree what it's like to fight Lopez. But I don't know if Lopez can do the same. Now, someone could argue, you know, Mikey Garcia, when he was fighting Earl Spence, brought in middleweights to try to simulate it. And we saw how that went in that fight. It didn't work at all. But it is something to think about, and it's something I wanted to point out. Another X factor, and then I'll get to my prediction in this fight, is there was an interesting conversation between Andre Ward and Timothy Bradley. Now, I don't necessarily agree with either guy all that much all the time, but I thought Timothy Bradley actually had a really good point. And Andre Ward said that he's glad this fight is later for Lopez because it means that Lomachenko is a little bit older. But Timothy Bradley countered that with saying, actually, I disagree with you. I think it works in Lomachenko's favor because Loma hasn't been 100% healthy going into camp and then into a fight. We've seen this. The Pedraza fight, like I brought up earlier, he was coming back from a shoulder surgery earlier than what was recommended for him. And we saw him struggle at certain points and not be as effective. He still found a way to win, but he didn't win in the manner that normally Loma does. He wasn't 100% for the Linares fight. This is something that happens with him being 32 years old. Now, with this time off, we know that he's healed up. We know that he is going to be 100% going to camp. He's going full steam ahead, and that could be huge. I'm not worried about a 23-year-old being physically healthy for a fight. I mean, it's not a problem for him. As someone that's in their mid-30s, I can tell you, though, if you're not physically all there, your body's going to let you know. And I think that's a big factor for Lomachenko going into this fight. And I think it's a good thing for him. Let's get to prediction now. So I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to have some bias because I'm a Lomachenko fan. But the way I try to view my predictions is, if I had to put $1,000 down right this second, who would I put it on and how would I have them winning? That's how I try to do it. But I am going to tell you if I am biased at all. I try to be honest with you guys. So if I had to put my money down, I would put my $1,000 on Lomachenko winning by points. That's how I see it. I think the way the fight goes is this. Lopez comes out, tries to bully Lomachenko. And I think he's effective maybe for the first 2 rounds. I then see Loma make adjustments and Lopez struggle to catch up with those adjustments. I then see Lopez start getting more frustrated and his corner not being as effective as they need to be to guide this young 23-year-old in this moment. I then think Lopez is going to go to try to hitting home runs, basically swinging for the fences, and I think it's going to work against him. Eventually, I think we're going to get to a point where Lopez just doesn't know what to do and Loma takes over. And I think Loma's going to win by 7 or 8 rounds in this fight, if not more possibly. That's how I see it personally. I absolutely think that Lopez could win by KO. It's absolutely a possibility. But if it's going to happen, I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Because once Loma gets that engine warm and start running with it, I just see Lopez not being able to keep up with Loma in terms of adaptability. And that's how I see it. Let me know how you see it down in the comments below. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks.